got more blockbusters, more heat around the 49ers and their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Is he on the move? We've got a special guest joining us today on this live Q&A off-season episode of Locked On 49ers to give us some of that inside information on the Indianapolis Colts potentially being a landing spot for Jimmy G. All of that coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And let's just get this kicked off. By the way, shout out to everybody in the chat. This thing's on fire already. I know everyone's excited about what's going on in the offseason. This is why, Croc, we can do a podcast in the offseason. That's why Locked On Podcast Network exists. That's why
5 days a week. I think it helps that we cover the San Francisco 49ers and they continue to just give us, I mean, they're pulling content out of their ass.
Awesome. Every single day, this team gives us something to talk about. And so it's fantastic and it's fun. And I've always enjoyed the offseason just about as much as the regular season, Croc. And I know you've been on the pod with me so many times, even before you were the co-host, just to talk draft. And that was the most fun times we had talking about the Niners was in the offseason, right? So draft season is the best season, in my opinion. The free agency, all the trades going on with the quarterback movement. I mean, it's must-see TV at this point. So I'm psyched for it. And I'm psyched to talk about the Niners tonight with all the folks in the chat. Let's get this going. But first, let's bring on today's guest, a very special guest on this live edition of Locked On 49ers, Evan Sidery, joining the program. He is the host of Locked On Colts. And Evan, welcome to the program. We might have a little action between these two teams, right? It seems like there's some smoke as it pertains to the Indianapolis Colts potentially making a move now for Jimmy Garoppolo now that they have a vacancy after sending Carson Wentz to Washington.
Yeah, been a crazy day for the Colts sending Carson Wentz, getting off his entire contract to then have $70 million in cap space for next week for free agency. There's a lot of smoke now around Jimmy Garoppolo to the Colts. We heard Ian Rappaport about 5 minutes after the trade happened saying they're now in the mix for Jimmy Garoppolo. So very interesting to me. Garoppolo would be the polar opposite of Wentz, a great leader, as we were talking about off the air, Brian. Very accurate down the field as well. It feels like he'd be kind of the guy the Colts are looking for right now. And it wouldn't really cost that much. I mean, I think it's something that maybe they could kind of swap these picks that they just got from Washington or give out their own picks to San Francisco and kind of have it be a net positive in return, get Jimmy Garoppolo a more accurate, a better leader, I think a better overall fit for the offense Greg wants to run.
A lot of folks in the chat, Evan, want DeForest Buckner back in return for Jimmy Garoppolo. Can we shoot that down right now, or can we play ball there?
Hey, we can shoot it down, but I mean, DeForest Buckner needs a quarterback, so he needs something there.
So how do you think the rest of the Colts fan base feels about Jimmy Garoppolo, and have you kind of been able to kind of check that? Because so far from Peacock and I, anytime we put out little feelers or just any thoughts of Jimmy Garoppolo being able to help another team win games, we get a ton of pushback from the fan base. Do you think that's the same thing, that way that the Colts fans are thinking, or do you think like they would welcome Jimmy Garoppolo with open arms after having to, I don't want to say deal with Carson Wentz because I think he played well, but after having a guy like Carson Wentz and kind of losing out at the end of the season the way they did against the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Raiders, do you think they'll welcome a Jimmy Garoppolo with open arms?
I think the Colts front office would welcome him with open arms. I don't know about fans because I brought up today on Twitter, and I brought Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's the best fit for this team right now. I think in the short and long term, he's a better fit for the offense. And immediately people are like, oh, that's just Jimmy Garoppolo Wentz. Like, it's the same guy. I'm like, no, I don't think he actually is. If you go and look at the advanced numbers, if you look at the overall fit within the offense, I think it's a perfect fit. I think it makes a lot of sense. Jimmy Garoppolo will go to a winning situation, be competing in the AFC South alongside the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill. He has a strong running game. He has a great defense, a great offensive line. He still needs some weapons. I think the Colts will go out and get him some weapons if they did indeed trade for him. Probably get a legit wide receiver and a tight end there alongside Michael Pittman. I just think it makes too much sense. Colts fans are definitely not on board with it, Croc. I don't know why, because I just think it makes too much sense not to happen. But yeah, Colts fans think that Carson Wentz and Jimmy Garoppolo are the exact same player, and I can attest that. I know you guys can attest to that too. I don't really think they are.
Now, you talked about a swap of picks and saying, you know what, just swap the picks they just got. Do you think that's what it would take for, to get Jimmy Garoppolo for the 49ers? He is kind of coming off of this shoulder surgery, and he has to go through the whole rehab process. He can't throw a ball until July. You still don't mind giving up the capital that you gave up for that you got in return for a healthy Carson Wentz?
Yeah, makes me a little apprehensive there because you'd be going to the same situation. You had a Carson Wentz who got hurt on the third day of training camp last year, missed all of training camp, all of preseason, not really having a lot of rhythm there. So Garoppolo missing all of OTAs, but it sounds like he'd be back for training camp. So I'm not too worried about it. I think if anything, I think Jimmy Garoppolo will be able to have a smoother transition because I think he's just a more accurate quarterback than Carson Wentz. He'd be able to do the things that Frank Reich wants. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think the Colts now have 3 day 2 picks. They have 2 second round pick, and they have 2 third-round picks. If the Colts want to swap out, let's say, hypothetically, their own third-round pick, number 82 overall, plus a conditional third-round pick next year that could turn to a second, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you could really do something like that.
It's not far off from what I've been saying the 49ers would probably get. I thought Washington might have been that team, and it's interesting to see Wentz go to Washington for pretty much what I've been saying the Niners could possibly get from Washington for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I know Jimmy has a say in it, and we'll see if this ends up all working out. But from a Colts perspective, and I understand where Colts fans are at if they think, well, what are we doing with a lateral move going from Wentz to Jimmy Garoppolo? I do think those quarterbacks are somewhat in the same tier. And if you are the Colts, are you really paying a premium to go from 2 quarterbacks that are in the same tier? And we saw these 2 teams play, and I know it was bad weather game this year, but I didn't come out of that game thinking, oh my God, Jimmy Garoppolo is a heck of a lot better quarterback than Carson Wentz.
I think it's more so just about the field stuff and about volatility. I think Carson Wentz, we saw last year, his highs were very high, but his lows were awful. We saw it the last 2 weeks of the season against the Raiders and the Jaguars. He's the reason why they lost. Obviously, the defense didn't have great games those last 2 weeks either, but Carson Wentz looked like a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL when it mattered most. And that's why I think rubbed the Colts the wrong way. And we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo. He's taken a team to a Super Bowl. He's taken a team to the NFC title game. He has the leadership qualities I think Carson Wentz lacked. And according to The Athletic today and the story they put out about the Carson Wentz trade from the Colts side, the Colts were just not fans of Carson Wentz and his leadership ability or lack thereof. And Jimmy Garoppolo is the polar opposite of that. I just think it makes too much sense from that standpoint. But just having a more steady hand. Carson Wentz, when he drops back in the pocket, he feels like you're going to have a heart attack because you know what's going to happen next. Jimmy Garoppolo is kind of the opposite thing where you know you're going to at least get something good where it's not going to be a lot of ups and downs, so to say.
It's interesting your take on Jimmy Garoppolo because I think if you polled a lot of 49er fans, it might be the opposite. and you might be explaining Jimmy Garoppolo to them. But I do think that there's this element of Jimmy Garoppolo where he's a winner, right? Whether the 49ers are winning because of him or he's just contributing, I do think there's just this thing with him where he contributes to wins. And Peacock and I, we kind of nicknamed him Jimmy W. And I don't know how he's doing it. It's almost like our Built Bars, right? We do this. We talk about Built Bars and how they make them taste good first, and then they add the healthy stuff to it. And, how do they make it healthy when it tastes so good? Same thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. Is like, well, how are you winning when it looks like the team is carrying him, but there's just something about him. Maybe it's the leadership skills that you spoke about, Evan. But it seems like he typically makes timely throws right when the 49ers feel like they're kind of out of it or they need it. I think the tough thing is, and if he is traded to the Colts, one thing y'all have to deal with is he doesn't really blow teams out or put them away. So every game ends up kind of being tighter than it has to be. I think that's one thing with Jimmy Garoppolo that can be a little nerve-wracking.
I think the positive there, just real quickly about Jimmy, I mean, he had Jonathan Taylor behind him. I mean, that would help out a lot. Just having it like that behind him would make a lot of difference for him.
Oh, absolutely. Strong run game, play some defense, let Jimmy Garoppolo make sure you're getting into the right plays at the line of scrimmage, make some throws in the intermediate area of the field, get the ball in the hands of the playmakers, let them do their thing. And really the number one thing in all of this, it seems clear to me that the Colts would be looking for is that leadership, his presence in the locker room. Everyone loves him. Everyone has glowing things to say about him that's played with him, that's coached with him. in the 49ers locker room. So if the Colts are looking for that, someone you can win with, someone who can facilitate the offense, someone who can get you in the right play at the line of scrimmage, which goes sort of overlooked a lot of times, because you see the wow throws, but you don't know the other things in the checks that are happening. Sometimes getting you into the right run play is the best play back and run into a sack or throw an interception, right? So, and above all, leadership. If that's what the Colts are looking for, then Jimmy Garoppolo could absolutely be their guy. Next, Evan, I want to ask you a question. What would the offer be if you were in charge? What would you be offering for Jimmy Garoppolo? And Croc and I can either accept that offer or shut you down next. But I want to talk about the tournament. It's tourney time. Oh man, there's already some really good games happening in college basketball. It's that time of year again. The tournament is finally upon us, and you can find all the odds and brackets and contests and player props at betonline.net, the number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. Obviously, football. We just saw the combine. It was fun to bet on. I won some money, lost some money on the combine. There is draft props. There is Super Bowl futures that somehow the 49ers are still fourth ahead of the Broncos after acquiring Russell Wilson at 11-1 odds. So at BetOnline is your source for all of those sports wagering needs and information, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So go to BetOnline and play some poker or blackjack. So head over to the website today and learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Evan, you've had some chance to think about this. You just sent Carson Wentz off for and first of all, can we talk about this? What's going on in these meetings? I would love to hear the phone calls from these guys, nickel and diamond each other for, okay, let's also swap second round picks that are only 5 picks apart, and we don't even know who's going to be on the board yet. That pick number 42, and with the Russell Wilson trade, it was like, all right, well, give us another player, and then a fourth going this way and a fifth coming this way. I mean, I wonder if they're like looking at the chart and crunching these numbers and like, we need 300 more points on the chart. That's a fascinating part to me. Do you have any insight on how that trade went down with Washington and Wentz, and the swap of second round picks was the weird part?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Chris Ballard knew Washington was desperate after Russell Wilson. They swung and missed on that, and he said, "Hey, I know you guys sent us an offer earlier. Reportedly, they first a 4th and a 6th round pick for Carson Wentz, and turned into what they got." So that just says a lot about Chris Ballard and how he was able to maneuver that. I think it's intriguing because the idea that if they don't go in a direction Jimmy Garoppolo, so to say, them moving up 5 spots is intriguing because now they're only 10 spots away from number 32 overall. If they like a rookie quarterback, they move up to number 32 overall, get that 5th-year option, it'll cost less for them now. So that's just something to monitor there. I think that's a little interesting.
All right, I'm going to sit back. Croc's going to stand in as GM for the 49ers. Evan, you're GM of the Colts. I'll advise Croc maybe a little bit here. But what do you think would be the offer from the Colts to the 49ers for Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, let me start it off, see if you'll bite on this, Croc. 82 overall, 3rd round pick, and that's it.
You know what? We got a deal. Like, that's all it would take.
What?
Really? Okay. I'm all about that. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Right. Well, listen, we're talking about a guy. He has a shoulder injury. I mean, I don't know if his arm is about to fall off or not. He can't throw until training camp, and you want to, off the bat, offer me a 3rd round pick. I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'm all about it from the Colts standpoint. Yeah. Just because the Colts has got an extra 3rd round pick from Washington. So you're kind of just swapping out those picks for the better upgrade. So I think the Colts also from. Oh, go ahead.
I would have to maybe, realistically, you would want to play hardball. But I mean, before going into the trade, I would have taken a 3. So when you just offered me the 3, maybe I would have been like, maybe I should counter with something else. But yeah, that's what I would have. If you tell me right now, if you told me tomorrow the 49ers trade Jimmy Garoppolo and they get a 3rd and he's going to the Colts, I would take it.
Wow, Crocker.
I think it's something too.
I cannot believe that he went for the first offer there. You got to play some hardball, Croc. Wait, Evan. So how far would you have been willing to go there? Because I think the 49ers are probably asking as much or more from teams. I know the 49ers are saying, a first-round pick. That's their first thing. I don't know if they believe they're going to get that, but I bet that's what they're telling teams. It's got to be a first-round pick, and then they'll try to negotiate a way to get some sort of a conditional future first-round pick or something like that. But what would you have been willing to go to? Would have been if Croc played hardball with you? How high would you think the Colts would go for this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the reason why I brought up the third round pick was because if Carson Wentz, you get a third round pick and you also get conditional potential second round pick in the next draft, I would have gone to that point. I would have said, I'll give you a third round pick next year. If Jimmy plays 13 games, like 75% of the snaps, you guys turn to a second round pick next year. I mean, maybe I'm too high on Jimmy Garoppolo and his fit in this Colts offense, but I just think it makes too much sense. I feel like if it's a third round pick, I think Chris Ballard takes that immediately just because you have a steady hand. You don't lose any draft capital. You gain a higher pick in the third round from the Washington Commanders. So I think it makes too much sense all around. I think we're kind of talking ourselves into a deal. We should just phone this in to Chris Ballard and John Lynch.
What if John Lynch says, okay, Ballard's not going to cut it, but I know you have some reservations about the shoulder. So we got to go to conditions and we got to go to 2023, but we still want that one. So what about no picks this year? And we need a conditional first-round pick next year. And if Garoppolo is active for 13 games, then it's a first. And if not, then it's a second-round pick. So even in a disaster scenario, you're giving up a second-round pick. Would you hang up the phone immediately at that point?
I'm not doing more than a third. I'm not. I just think if Carson Wentz can get you – yeah, the most I would do is the Carson Wentz trade. If Carson Wentz can get you a third-round pick and a conditional second – I think I would do the same thing for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like we mentioned all show, they're the same tier of player. If Wentz can get that, who I think was worse than Garoppolo last year, I think I would do that. I would do a third round pick and a conditional day 2 pick in next year's draft. But if all it takes is a third round pick, and one interesting thing too, I'm just curious from your guys' standpoint, and you've mentioned this before, that Jimmy has a say in this. If he says, hey, there's other offers on the table from the Saints, the Steelers, and there's better offers from those teams, but I want to go to Indy, would they give in and say, hey, there's better offers on the table? Maybe they get like a conditional first round pick from somewhere else, but Jimmy really wants to go to Indy. Do you think they would roll over and say, you know what, we'll just do what's best for him?
Yeah, well, here's an issue. Jimmy Garoppolo in his contract, he's probably going to want some kind of restructure. So if he gets traded to a team and he's like, well, I'm not restructuring anything and I'm not going to, then there could be an issue. Y'all remember, what was it, a couple years ago? And everybody looks at Josh Allen now and it's like, Josh Allen's this amazing quarterback. But remember when Antonio Brown was traded to the Bills and he was like, I ain't going there. Then all of a sudden the trade disappeared. And yeah. What if Jimmy does something like that where it's like, oh, I'm not going to this other place. Don't trade me over there to the Saints who are in cap hell and you can't put any players around me. I'm not going there. I think it'll make it hard for the 49ers to kind of move him. So you have to take, if Jimmy's like, hey, I'll go to this place, I think you kind of have to do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I'm just, after today, the Colts, just following Colts Twitter all day, no one has any clue what's happening next. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo honestly does make a lot of sense here. If we're talking just fit, talking leadership, talking Frank Reich, by the way, I don't think I brought this up on the show on my podcast either, but Frank Reich at the Combine, he's mentioned this multiple times. His 2 favorite traits in quarterbacks from a statistics standpoint are yards per attempt and completion percentage. And Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the best in the NFL at those 2 metrics. So he blows Carson Wentz out of the water there. So I just feel like that's kind of a perfect marriage to me. Like Frank Reich coaching Jimmy Garoppolo and Garoppolo running that offense just efficiently, not having a lot of ups and downs, being a steady Eddie kind of guy, being a top 15-ish quarterback. I just think it's a perfect marriage. I don't know about you guys, but I just think it makes a lot of sense.
I like it. I like the fit more and more, especially now that we've seen Carson Wentz sent off. And I don't know if it's as much as the Colts would just love Jimmy Garoppolo or they just hated Carson Wentz that much. But I could see the Niners even getting back more than the Colts gave up. But I think it's probably pretty close. And who knows, maybe they flip almost the exact same deal to the Niners for Jimmy Garoppolo because they would be getting that leadership. And with Jimmy G, I will say the last note for your listeners, Evan, about Jimmy Garoppolo is, yards per attempt is big, but he had a lot of yak yards. He had a lot of really good runners after the catch, so it's not all on him. But at the same time, I call Jimmy Garoppolo, he's basically aggressively intermediate with the way he throws. He doesn't check the ball down a lot. So, he doesn't make a lot of big throws on the outside, way down the field or anything like that. And Carson Wentz does more of that maybe. But Carson Wentz yards per attempt is lower because what Jimmy Garoppolo does is he doesn't settle for the check down. He's not a check down type of a quarterback. So he will force those balls over the middle of the field. He wants to get the ball to his playmakers. And even though he's not throwing the ball deep down the field a lot, he's not a check down guy either. So he is somewhat aggressive in a really weird way. And I think that also buoys his yards per attempt a little bit.
Well, also, it kind of is a check down because it's kind of a check down built into the play call, right? Where he can be a little bit more aggressive with throwing the ball downfield and he elects not to. And he takes something that he's more comfortable with throwing, but it's not a check down in the sense of, I'm just going to look downfield and, let me check down to the running back. It's not one of like, he's throwing it past the line of scrimmage. And it's a little like kind of a living on that, like life on the edge a little bit. It's a dangerous way to play. And that's why you'll see him throw interceptions over the middle. But when he's on, I mean, he's hitting guys in stride. They have big time run after catch opportunities. He gets the ball out of his hands extremely quick. He's typically pretty efficient within that area. But I don't know who that guy is for the Colts. I know they have Michael Pittman. We know that T.Y. Hilton's kind of a shell of himself. We'll see if they kind of look to add a little bit more receiver talent. What happens with Paris Campbell? I know he's had a couple of season-ending injuries and what's going on with him. But, yeah, he needs a run-after-catch guy. If I'm the Colts with the draft pick that I didn't take in the third round or second round, get you a good run-after-catch guy.
Yeah, Paris Campbell, I mean, hopefully he stays healthy there, but Paris Campbell, I think, makes an awful lot of sense for that kind of role. Obviously, he's nowhere close. I'm not saying he's anywhere close to a Debo type of guy, but he fits that kind of role where 4.31 speed, you can go out and get a guy that can just get in space. And I just want to ask real quick from your guys' perspective and just for the Niners fans out there, because honestly, I only watched Garoppolo play against the Colts this year and then their playoff run, just covering the Colts-centric only. How much was Jimmy helped out by his weapons? Do you think if he could step into a situation, let's say in Indy where there's less weapons, do you think it would make he'd still be the same quarterback, or do you think he's really buoyed by a Debo and a Kittle?
No, I think he'd do well. I mean, a lot of people remember Jimmy Garoppolo first going to the 49ers in 2017, and he didn't light the world on fire, but he was still extremely efficient. His best connection he had was with Trent Taylor, who is kind of an afterthought over there with the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe that's where he's playing at right now. He was throwing the ball to Marquise Goodwin. Goodwin was dang near 1,000-yard receiver and still did well with Jimmy Garoppolo while he was there. So I don't think that it has to be the greatest of guys. I think just being able to not have to put the whole game on his shoulders. Again, and I don't think that'll be an issue with the Indianapolis Colts because they have Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor would help out a lot there. And I'm really I love the idea that I talk about more just of Jimmy Garoppolo, just because he's just a steady guy. It's what the Colts need. It's not going to be a sexy move, but the Colts are just in a predicament. I mean, luckily for you guys in the NFC, the AFC is absolutely loaded with quarterbacks, and the Colts, all these guys are entering their prime years, and they can't waste them. So the Colts are in such a pickle. I mean, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is the best option to really maximize the core they currently have because they can't wait around multiple years. They're going to have to go up against these Herberts, Allens, Russell Wilson now, Josh Allen, all these guys for the next 5, 6, 7+ years. And they're just in a pickle. I really don't know where the Colts can go.
Yeah, and if you want to win now, you're running out of quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo is probably the best one left for a team that's trying to find a quarterback that they can do that with right now. All right, we're going to let you go, Evan. Appreciate you jumping on with us. This was a lot of fun doing a little impromptu live crossover action here. We're going to jump into the chat next, so get those questions fired up. What's the least amount you would accept for Jimmy Garoppolo? Want to see that in the chats. What are you guys looking at in free agency in the draft? What should the 49ers do with that pick if they do get one for Jimmy G coming up next? Evan, appreciate you, man. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Appreciate it as always, guys. Thanks.
Man, I cannot believe my co-host Eric Crocker just caved for the very first offer, man. Not even holding out for an extra future pick or nothing.
Well, the issue is I don't know what picks they have. And I remember looking at, because we just talked about on Locked On the NFL draft, but it was like weird. It was like some picks and then they had conditional picks next year. So it's like, I don't even know what picks they really have. So, I mean, that makes it a little bit more difficult to play hardball. But yeah,
jumped up
you're giving me a 3. If I were to tell you right now, 49ers got a 3 for Jimmy Garoppolo, how would you feel? A 3 this year?
Now that I've seen the Wentz trade, I think Jimmy's value is right there with Wentz. I know Jimmy has the shoulder, and I think maybe there's potential because of the leadership stuff and how much Jimmy wins. I think perceptions around the league, depending on what kind of offense you run, that maybe Jimmy has a little bit more value, or at least the 49ers would make sense that the 49ers are asking for more than the Colts are asking for Jimmy Garoppolo, and then you consider the shoulder, which is supposed to be okay, and a team would probably have to look at the shoulder, make sure it's good, and they think the prognosis is good, and he'd be ready for July. I think it'll end up being very similar. And we had talked about it, a conditional second that if he doesn't play a certain amount of games will become a third next year. That's the exact pick I was talking about that
I
the
want
Niners would
something
get.
this year, though.
Yeah.
I want something.
One pick this year, a conditional 2 next year. I think that's exactly what it'll look like, which is exactly what Carson Wentz just went for. Maybe the Niners
conditional 3, right? A 3 that could turn into a 2.
Right. Yeah. So it's a second round pick unless Wentz doesn't play 75% of the snaps. I think it'll be less. I think the Niners would say if he's active for 8 games, something a little bit less, but it'll be conditions because of his injury, and it makes total sense. And so, pick this year, pick next year, conditional. It's exactly what I think the Niners are going to end up getting for Jimmy Garoppolo. And who knows, maybe the Colts just flip the exact same deal for Jimmy G. And I think the Colts would probably be happy with that.
Did you see what Ian Rappaport said? Basically, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they are kind of expecting Garoppolo to be dealt to the Colts, and he also kind of alluded to a lot of teams. Once the Wentz trade happened, a lot of teams were interested in Jimmy Garoppolo. So there are a lot of people that are like, Jimmy will not have a trade market, and it's just like, man, you never know. Teams get thirsty for quarterbacks, and you start to look around the league. I mean, look at the Colts. If the Colts, they gave up Carson Wentz, if they go into the year with whatever quarterback they have now, or we got to go get Mitchell Trubisky, which his name is hot for whatever reason. We just talked about him. Like, dude's a backup. He's not good. We watched him play for 4 years in Chicago. Not good. All right. And that was a similar situation as Jimmy Garoppolo, but he was nowhere near as efficient. So, I think there is going to be a market for Garoppolo. It's just how much does the shoulder hurt that market? And it seems like that's what teams are kind of waiting on. I think that's what they said. Washington said something about that along the lines of they didn't want to wait around for his shoulder.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And that might hurt the 49ers in them trading him now. Maybe they got to wait just a couple of weeks for teams to look at the shoulder. Maybe the teams, now that he's had the surgery, can look at the shoulder. But that's why definitely I expect a conditional pick coming the 49ers way. It's a strange situation, to be honest with you. And it still makes sense for Pittsburgh, still makes sense for the Saints. But at this point now that Wentz is gone, the Colts have jumped to number 1, and those two teams have swung deals in the past. So we'll see what and Chris Ballard's aggressive, and so is John Lynch. So I could absolutely see a deal like that getting done. A lot of folks in here seem like they think, 2/4. I think that's the lowest I've seen yet that the chat would be okay with. A lot of folks need at least a 2. Oh, here we go. Boogie Jones 85 says 1 4th-round pick would get it done for him. So he's caving even before Croc.
Yeah.
I do like Cole Strange in the 4th, though. That would be a good use of that 4th-round pick. But if you get that 4th this year and a conditional 2-3 next year, now we're talking, I think. Now we're talking for Jimmy Garoppolo. You'd feel pretty good about that. I would have, look, before I saw this Wentz trade, and I thought there was a chance that Wentz was going to get straight up cut, right?
Right.
They let Wentz gone. The contract was maybe iffy. He's. I think teams are looking much fonder at Jimmy G, even if the talent level is not better than Carson Wentz. I think he's looked at more fondly by a lot of teams and coaches around the league just because the way he wins, because of the leadership and all those things. So there was even though Jimmy's hurt, and look, Wentz has been hurt a lot in his career. And it just felt like a more of a damaged goods vibe around Carson Wentz. And I thought maybe there was a chance he'd even get cut. So the fact that they got a 3 this year and a 3 that could become a 2 next year, I think that's great. And I think I would have taken that for, I would have thought that was a great return for Jimmy Garoppolo. But to be honest with you, I feel like it made Jimmy's price go up. Mike Tannenbaum on ESPN today, former NFL GM, he said that the big winners of the Rodgers and Wilson stuff yesterday was the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. He said Jimmy Garoppolo's worth a first-round pick in trade now and a $40 million contract. I think he's high as hell, but I also think that it goes to show you that I think maybe there's a little bit more there with Jimmy G, and I think the Niners are probably asking for more than what the Colts got for Wentz. So it's going to be an interesting few days here.
You don't look like you watch Power, but there's a show called Power, and then they have like these kind of.
What are you trying to say? Hold on a second. What do I look like, Croc?
You look like you watch Entourage.
I know. I'm not a big fan of Entourage. Or I'm not a fan of either one of those shows.
Okay, well, Power. I just watched the episode last night with Tommy. You might actually like Tommy. All right, but there's this new drug that's out, and like he's trying to sell it, but he took a hit of it. It's like some kind of coke or something, but it gave him like the best high ever. And maybe that's what the Colts owner will be on. But I mean, isn't Irsay the one that wasn't that him?
You might be onto something with Irsay and some stuff. Yeah. He might have been hanging out with Chris Forster back in the day.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Irsay might be high. So
all right, I'll check out Power. I have not seen that yet.
Well, you're too late now. I mean, there's so many. Yeah, you wouldn't get it.
It's too late.
So there's like 5 seasons of Power, and then they did these kind of what they call not offsprings, but what do they call them?
Offshoots.
It's like
spinoffs.
Spinoffs. There we go.
Yeah.
So then there's like these spinoff, but it's not like a spinoff. I mean, it's all the same actors, but they go into their individual stories, and it's actually pretty dope the way they did it. 50 Cent is the producer of it. He's done an amazing job with it. But yeah, so now they are on Tommy. He's like super like white dude gangster. Like he's cool. I love Tommy. But yeah, he's on that Irsay stuff.
Okay. On the Irsay plan. Yeah, I think Irsay really didn't like Carson Wentz. I think that's part of it.
They hated him. And I don't think anybody like that. That's the issue. I'm telling people online today on Twitter. And they're like, what? Like, dude, nobody likes him. I don't care what his players come out and say. They may feel obligated for that, like, to say those things. The organizations are telling you, we don't like Carson Wentz. He wasn't terrible as a quarterback. Did he have a rough couple of games at the end? Like, yeah, but he wasn't terrible this season. Played well for the most part.
I said earlier that I didn't come away with the Colts-Niners game thinking Garoppolo was better. And in fact, it was kind of the opposite, right? Carson Wentz made plays at the end of the game, pushed the ball down the field in the rain, and made a few plays and helped the Colts win that game and beat the 49ers. And so it's not talent that's holding Carson Wentz back right now. It's everything else, leadership, off the field stuff, missing games because his vac situation, I think was a big one that I've read and heard from some other folks behind the scenes that was really big that Irsay really got pissed off about because he hurt his team, by not being a team guy. And he makes bonehead decisions, and it's crazy that the Eagles won the Super Bowl when he was out, right? I don't know if they would have won with him if he was healthy, but that
was the best version of him. That was the best version of Carson Wentz. I mean, he was great that year. He was an MVP candidate and everything until he got hurt and missed like the last 4 games.
All right. I've got PTSD from earlier in the week when a bunch of news happened after I finished a Peacock and Williamson podcast. So I'm making one more glance now at Twitter just to make sure I'm not missing any reports about Jimmy Garoppolo having been traded while we've been talking here. No, it looks like
you're not. I've been checking it. Someone in the chat keeps saying, check Twitter. So like I have it up here on my screen. That's why I keep looking at them. Nothing's going on. Not yet.
All right. Let's get deeper into the chat next. Do a little bit of overtime with the folks that hung out and chatting with us live here on YouTube. For those of you that are in your car on your way to work, maybe, and hanging out on the audio only podcast, we appreciate you. Thank you for making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen, check out Croc doing the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm doing the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, talking about the league every single day right here on the network. And maybe check out the YouTube channel as well. Make sure you hit subscribe and thumbs up on any of your podcast platforms, and tell a friend about Locked On 49ers. Croc and I will be back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers. All right, let's do a little overtime here with the chat. I love the folks hanging out right now. I think JC Jackson is one of the topics of conversation we got to talk about here. The 49ers have been linked to JC Jackson. He's expected to be probably the hottest commodity on the free agent market. Gilmore as well. What are your thoughts on the latest reports? Are the Niners really it would be new for them, right? To be really going hard at spending resources on cornerback. Miguel says, would love to see the Niners sign J.C. Jackson or Gilmore and get the edge with the 61st pick. So what do you think? They go D-line in the draft. They go corner in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you know me on the cornerback situation. I'm just not really big on spending a whole lot of money. Now, I would not complain that the 49ers went and got J.C. Jackson. But also, just keep this in mind, y'all, and you can look at it however you want. J.C. Jackson was on the team. They gave up 47 points to the Buffalo Bills. And what was it? 4 incompletions, 5 touchdown passes for Josh Allen. So I'm not saying that there's not an impact by getting a high-priced cornerback. But clearly the Patriots feel, you know what, maybe we should go the 49ers direction with things. Draft some guys mid-round, get some guys that are serviceable, load up on the front, and just play some solid team defense. Don't give up the big play. Limit passing yards, even if it's not our corners, and go win some games. And do like the 49ers did, who gave up 47 combined games in 3 playoff games, as opposed to 47 points in 1 playoff game. Boom.
I don't think the Niners are actually interested in J.C. Jackson. First of all, it would be illegal tampering if they were making calls on that, guys. Okay. So I don't know where these reports come from.
The agent.
Obviously, they're agents,
Yeah.
right? Like the agents going out there and throwing some teams and trying to drum up some interest, I'm sure. And who knows? There's probably some back channel stuff and maybe some names come up. But Croc, would you rather go J.C. Jackson or Gilmore if you had to go one of them? I don't think J.C. Jackson makes sense at all for the 49ers. I get a little bit wary of, Bill Belichick's a really good defensive coordinator, and seeing a player play really well for the Patriots and then hit the market and pay top of the market money for that player, that weirds me out a little bit. And I don't think the Niners need to do that. And if they were going to spend on the free agent market, I think Gilmore's got a better track record of success, and he's going to be, because of his age, cheaper and probably earn a shorter contract. And I don't think the 49ers are in a position to be spending big money 4-year, 5-year deals where they're pushing money into the future when they still got to pay Debo and Nick Bosa. Now, if they can do a contract that's going to be ending in 2023, a 2-year deal for Stephon Gilmore, that makes a ton more sense to me, Croc. How would you feel about it if the Niners had to sign one of those two guys?
J.C. Jackson is younger. I mean, if you feel like, you know what, just 1 year we want to get after it, then yeah, you go ahead and go with Gilmore. But you can, as far as money, you can kind of finesse that however you want. And also, you got to remember, while you have a quarterback on his rookie contract, do whatever the hell you want right now. This is the time. If you're going to go out and blow money on a cornerback, I don't want to say blow money, but spend a ton of money on a cornerback, do it while Trey Lance is on rookie court, and you can figure out everything else. You'll figure it out if you want this guy. Now, you might lose DJ Jones, all right, but you'll figure it out. But I don't. Now, here's the question. Someone asked me this. If it came down to J.C. Jackson and Laken Tomlinson, what direction are you going? If you had to pick one of the two, Laken Tomlinson or J.C. Jackson?
Laken Tomlinson. I mean, it depends on it would, for what I think they're going to get, it would be Laken Tomlinson.
What do you think Laken's going to get?
Like $9 million.
Huh.
Now, if he hits the market and ends up in the $14 million range, if it was the same amount of dollars in years, definitely taking a corner over a guard, right?
I don't know.
And I wonder if that's what the Niners are thinking. They're going to let all their guys in free agency and then just reshuffle the deck with the outside free agents and their own guys. And so maybe
J.C.
Jackson,
he's young. J.C. Jackson's younger for sure. But I don't know. There's something about Laken Tomlinson where I just look at it. I don't want to create more holes on the offensive line. Like you already, we don't know what's going to go on Alex Mack, Brunskill and Banks. We'll see. McGlinchey's hamstring is hanging off his kneecap or whatever the heck is going on there. So I don't want to add left guard to that whole dynamic there. Let me lock up my left guard regardless, and then I'll worry about the rest of the offensive line and see who can play or how healthy guys are or where Banks is in his development or where Moore is in his development. But I don't want to throw a wrench in things and also create a hole at left guard as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to pay a guard huge money, but I mean, he's been so consistent and rock solid, and you don't want to create more holes on the offensive line in front of your new young starting quarterback for sure. How about Deshaun Hamilton? He was released. You pick him up off waivers. I've seen a few people throw his name out there. I forgot he was still in the league, to be honest with you. I know he had all kinds of problems coming out of like not major problems, but he had to ride his bike and get rides everywhere because he didn't have a driver's license coming out of the draft. And I remember a lot of people liked him in the 4th round a few years ago, but I mean, it doesn't really move the needle for me. I think the Niners need to go find some young speed in the draft more so than pick up somebody's guy that they don't even want on their roster.
Well, I think why you haven't heard of him in a while is because I believe he tore his ACL, right? Wasn't he about to get traded? And I think the 49ers were interested in trading for him, and then he tore his ACL in like training camp or something like that.
Yeah, there was some talk that maybe the Niners were interested in trading for him because he was on the trade block. That was like a couple of years ago though, right?
Nah, just this past season.
That was this past season? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if they liked him. Yeah, pick him up off waivers. Not going to cost you nothing, but I don't expect anything from Deshaun Hamilton.
I think he is someone, if it's just as easy as claiming him, I would take a flyer on him.
Oh, how about this one? What about Bobby Wagner?
Hold on, real quick.
Okay.
Real quick. Back. I actually kind of like the thoughts of Hamilton because he brings a different dynamic 49ers have. He's a little lean, but he's that legit slot guy. He could create separation. Is he the fastest of guys? He has a little bit of wheels, but nothing too crazy. But I would definitely bring him in, like a flyer type thing. Not maybe expecting big things out of him, but potentially someone who can definitely develop a role in the 49ers offense. But I know I cut you off. My bad.
No, it's all good. I mean, he's free. So, yeah, bring in free talent. Let him, whatever. Cut him in training camp if he doesn't work out. What about Bobby Wagner? The Seahawks been doing it to the Niners for years. Bobby Wagner just got released by the Seahawks. Maybe he's like, you know what? You want to blow it up? Okay, I'm going to go sign with the 49ers. Play next to Fred Warner. What do you think? Sign Bobby Wagner in a 1-year deal?
Yeah, no. From my understandings, for some of the things I've read about, he's like 2 years. Like he hasn't been good for the last 2 years. Not to what I think people think about when they hear his name.
He's definitely not the same Bobby Wagner, although I think he played better this last year than he did before because it did seem like he was going to be done coming into this year. He had an all right year. And maybe
are the 49ers bringing back Azeez Al-Shaair and Greenlaw? I mean, I think they play very well.
Here's what you do is you re-sign Azeez Al-Shaair, you trade Greenlaw, then you sign Bobby Wagner just to stick it to the Seahawks.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind it.
Have we talked about Charvarius Ward yet? That was another rumor out there that the 49ers had some interest in the Chiefs free agent cornerback Charvarius Ward. BSE says sign Ward and Tavon Young, draft an edge at 61. Nick Bonito, highest win rate the last 2 years in college football. Interesting. Highest pass rush win rate, Nick Bonito. What do you think?
Ward and Tavon Young. I believe Tavon Young, he's more of like a nickel, I believe. But as far as Ward goes, I mean, we have conversations about cornerbacks all the time. I think the fans, they hear names, right? And it's almost like our guy we just had on from the Colts. When you don't watch every single play, and sometimes that can screw you. If you're a fan of a team and you watch someone every single play, you start to have like this different idea of who that player is, right? You judge him way more harsh as opposed to just, seeing glimpses of him in certain games. You might have a higher opinion of that guy, right? I think especially when it comes to the cornerback position, when you watch these corners every single game, it's like, oh man, yeah, go get Charvarius Ward because he's better than Ambry Thomas or he's better than even Diamador Lenore or one of those guys. And it's probably not. Like, he's probably not. Or even if he is, it might be marginally better, like if at all. So, I mean, when I was in the NFL, that was the first thing I noticed. I'm getting to offseason OTAs, about to start working. I'm like, man, this Kyle Wilson, man, he was a first round pick, man. Antonio Cromartie. Oh my gosh, there's Darrelle Revis. Like then they draft D Milliner. Oh my God, man, D Milliner. And when you're on the field with these guys, not talking about Revis, he ended up getting traded to Tampa. But these other guys, like, man, it's not as much different as everybody thinks. I think there's a few freaks. And Cromartie was a freak for sure. Sheldon Richardson was a freak. Quentin Coples was a freak, even though he didn't work out like that. Muhammad Wilkerson, he was a freak. But most guys on the roster, they're not freaks like that. So Charvarius Ward, to me, that's Eric Crocker. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, with better luck. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all it is. It ain't no big difference between a lot of guys.
Eric Crocker that made better decisions when he was like 19.
Yeah, 100% better decisions.
Yeah, and
I'm probably a little bit more athletic. But yeah.
Right. And so if you're going to go corner, go Gilmore, right? Go J.C. Jackson, because
go Gilmore, go J.C. Jackson.
If you're signing Ward, you're basically saying you're signing a number 2 corner because you don't really trust where Ambry Thomas is. So either provide depth under Ambry Thomas, because you're going to be, if you're signing a free agent contract to Ward, you're going to give him probably at least number 2 cornerback money there, and you're saying he's going to probably be a starter there, or sign someone that's so good that it's very clear that this is the dude and he's your cornerback, and Emmanuel Ozzie's on the other side, and then go get him Ambry Thomas, prove that you're going to be a starter sometime soon, but you're going to be the number 3 corner right now. That's the way I look at it. So yeah, I say no to Ward too. Nick Bonito, though I've watched a little bit of him. I've got so much more work to do on the draft, but I did like him. Yeah, 61. I could see the Niners going edge at 61 for sure. And there's a lot of names in this class too. A ton of edge guys in this class.
Deep edge class, very deep. Polar opposite of last season, I believe it was. I don't even know if there was there one good edge rusher last year? I'm trying to think of the class right now. But was there one guy?
Every time it's a new draft class, the old class gets erased from my memory. So I don't even remember anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. Who went? Who's the first overall pick last year?
Trevor Lawrence. It was the quarterback. That's why
the quarterbacks.
It's because of the quarterback thing. That's why our idea of the draft last year was so skewed, because there was so much.
So who was the first edge in that class? Because now I'm thinking about, okay, I know you had 3 receivers go top 10. You had the 3 quarterbacks go top 10.
2 tackles.
Had 2 tackles, and then you had the corners. You had 2 corners go top 10.
Yeah. Or actually,
then
one of the tackles.
Fields. You had Micah Parsons went. I mean, but he's
Parsons is an edge
linebacker.
Yeah, he was the linebacker edge. He was the best edge in that class. If he was 100% edge, he was definitely the best one.
I think he's 100. If he's 100% edge, he might be one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, he's good. That's the way they should use him.
So aside from him, who was another edge that was taken in the first round?
I can't remember who the second one was.
The Rocio dude from Miami Hurricanes.
Is that Phillips?
No, Phillips is from Miami. When did he go?
Phillips went to the Dolphins 19 or so, I think. Then at the very end of the first round was
Gregory Rousseau or whatever.
Rousseau. Yeah, Gregory Rousseau. He was late first round, like 29 or so to the Bills. Then there was the Ravens drafted the dude from Penn State, the super athletic dude. And I'm blanking on his name right now too. But yeah, there was a little run on some edge guys.
Is that Kwity Paye? Kwity Paye?
No, Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye was the first edge, the first true edge guy off the board to the Colts at like 15 or 14 or something like that. Yeah, that was it. So. That was the one. Speaking of edge, Alan says, what do you guys think about Myjai Sanders early day 3? Wide receiver convert, raw but very athletic. KK and co. can coach him up. I've gone back because a lot of people are fans of Myjai Sanders, and there was some, I guess he was asked if he met with the Niners, and he did. I never look at that stuff because there's no correlation, because every team looks at everybody. So I don't think you can look too much into a prospect saying that they met with the team, because they're just trying to get information. Myjai Sanders tape is not good. He looks like a wide receiver playing defense to me. He looked like a guy that is totally out of place as a defensive lineman. He would have to be in a really hybrid scheme, and I'd be afraid of him going up against guys in the run. He doesn't really bring any thump as a tackler of running backs, and definitely isn't going to hold up against offensive tackles against the run. So he's not going to be able to set the edge I know he was lighter, and maybe he was sick or something at the combine, and he was lighter than he was at the Senior Bowl, but he was still only 242 at the Senior Bowl. And what I saw from him on tape looked more like the combine weight. I didn't love it. And look, and we're talking day 3. Maybe take a flyer on an athletic guy that you can coach up, and he can become an edge presence for you. But I'm definitely not spending an early, and maybe even not even a 4th or 5th round pick on Myjai Sanders. I might be lower on him than a lot of people. Yeah, 5th round maybe.
I saw him in person at the Senior Bowl, and I think he weighed in at 242, and he was very lean then. I'm like, okay, the narrow hips. That's the scouting term, narrow hips. All right. He was very narrow in that way, slim build. But my buddy next to me was like, nah, like he can add a lot of weight to his frame. Like he has a frame that would be good to fill out. Well, he was 242 then, and I thought he was very slim. At the combine, he weighed in at 228. Now, they did say he was sick, came down with some kind of illness or whatever is going on with him. I don't know. But that's not ideal. Weighing at 228 pounds as an edge rusher.
And if you're going to weigh 228, you better be running 4.4s, 4.5s, especially on that crazy fast track they had going on in Indy. And he was like 4.67. So if you throw 30 pounds on that, what are you talking about athletically now? So, yeah, I'm not super high on Myjai Sanders. Another guy, Amari Barno from Virginia Tech, that blazed the 4.36 in the 40. I had not watched any of him, but after the combine, you got to go back and see what that guy's all about. And that was even worse than Myjai Sanders. Oh my God, that guy like tries to rush with his chest first. He doesn't even know how to. He doesn't even know he has arms. I don't think it's crazy. But he's kind of fast, but he's very upright, and like he'll spin sometimes. But he will literally go chest to chest with an offensive lineman. Like he doesn't know what he's doing. He looks like It's never good when your first thought about a prospect is, I wonder what other positions he could play, because I don't think he should be playing this one. Like, can he catch? Maybe convert him to tight end because he's fast, but. Outmatched as an edge guy. That was I can see why they invited him to the combine, but maybe one of those 7th round picks. But yeah, he's not a guy that's shooting up my draft boards because of the 4.3s.
Nah, we did got the Jalen Petrie at 61 comment there from our guy Andrew, and Petrie is intriguing. I think a lot of 49er fans like the thought of him because he's a safety. I think he's listed as safety. So I think a lot of people are thinking about, okay, if you lose Jaquiski Tart, we can go with Jalen Petrie. He could kind of fill in and be that guy. But they are very different. Very different. Well, one, they're different for a couple of reasons. One, Jaquiski Tart is a true safety. And he's big, right? He's a big athletic safety. That's what Tart is. And I know 49 fans are just used to seeing him, but 6'2", 220 plus pounds, whatever Tart is, he's a big guy and moves very well, and he's very athletic, and he's very good in space, coming down, making tackles, and he's very versatile. You can use him as a 2-high safety. You can use him as a single high safety. He can come down in the box. He's a short tackler from there. So it's, Tart does a lot of things very well. Petrie, they utilize him more in just the slot. Now, maybe it's kind of a Holland thing all over again. Javon Holland, who was playing for Oregon, got drafted to the Miami Dolphins. He was that guy too, who was like, they just used him in like this nickel role, almost like a slot, like Minka Fitzpatrick that last year at Alabama, where it's like you're just a slot, but you can kind of line up and do some linebacker type stuff. We send you off the edge with some blitzes. I did think that Petrie did a really good job of playing in space, flipping his hips. He showed some good athleticism and ball skills. So, I like him, but if you're saying, okay, do you draft him at 61 to be a nickel? Like, all right, I get it. But if you're saying you want to draft him at 61 to be a safety, maybe, but I just don't know. I just haven't seen it.
Definitely some projection there, but at the same time, that role is more difficult. So you usually put your best guy in that role, right, on defense. So I'd assume he could potentially do some other things, but
he didn't play man. It wasn't man. They played a ton of match. So it was like he kind of just took away one area and he kind of wall off the guy. And then if he went in, he just flip his hips and run with him or something. But I don't think he was responsible for everything that guy did. And it almost felt like every single snap they played some sort of a match defense.
Is it a red flag that he decided on a crazy fast track in Indy not to run the 40? It tells me he's probably not going to run a good time.
Yeah, well, yeah, when all his Baylor homies running 4 zeros, 4 ones.
Yeah.
Those dudes are fast.
Let's see. Kyler Gordon, Croc. Nick wants to know, Kyler Gordon, if he drops to the Niners, good fit?
I haven't watched him yet. I did watch his counterpart, McDuffie. And one thing I can tell you about McDuffie and probably even Gordon too, if I go back and watch, they play so much off coverage. It's so much off. Now, 49ers, I mean, that's what they're doing. Ambry Thomas, right? They got Ambry Thomas playing a lot of off where I'm like, Ambry Thomas, he's a press man corner. Why do you have him playing off zone all the time? I think he'd be more comfortable playing at the line of scrimmage, and we'd actually see a better version. And I think his skill set would have translated sooner, as opposed to saying, we don't know if he could play. Oh, he's a little raw, and they're playing him off so much. But I would say maybe, I guess from that sense, yeah, Gordon will probably fit because they play a ton of off. It's a little soft. I haven't watched. He didn't run as well as I think they thought he would. Everything I heard leading to the draft was 4.3. Athletic freak, and he went out there and ran like mid 4.5s. Unofficial. I don't know what his official time was. Let me try to find it. But I have to watch him.
I got the times for you right here. Let's see. Oh no, I'm going pretty far down the list here to find.
It's not ideal.
4.52. 4.52 for Kyler Gordon.
How big? How tall? How long?
So he was 4.52 in the 40-yard dash, and this is loading super slow. He weighed in at 5'11 and a half, 194 pounds, 31-inch arms, and he didn't do any of the other testing. He just did the 4.52.
Yeah, I don't know. Now 4.52 is that's not slow, but they were saying he was going to run a 4.3. So I think when you were expecting that. And then obviously you not get any of the other testing, none of the other agility drills. I don't think he gives you any incentives unless he was just this true. Like if I saw from him, like I saw like from McQuarrie, who McQuarrie did not test well. He has the little T-Rex arms, but I don't care. Like the film was really good. If that's the case with Gordon, then you give him a pass, but still he'll be more of a day 2 pick where some people thought he's a day 1.
What about Kobe Bryant? By the way, Cincinnati was stacked. A lot of credit was given to their quarterback, and for good reason. Desmond Ridder was really good, and in Cincinnati it made the tourney, right? Cincinnati had an awesome year, and then you start peeling back the layers and seeing how many good players they had and how many pro prospects they had, and you start to see, this team was legitimately crazy talented, man. What about Kobe Bryant? Koby Bryant out of Cincinnati. 6'1", 193. He ran 4.54, and I've seen him connected to the 49ers. I think a lot of fans like him for the Niners in that day 2 area.
I think he fits. You're talking about pick 61. I wouldn't trade up for him, but he's someone who I like. Now, does he move the needle? And that's what you're looking for, right? Like, how much better of a prospect is he than Ambry Thomas? And I think that margin would be very, very, very slim. Matter of fact, Ambry Thomas was the more physical specimen. But Kobe Bryant, ran a 4.54. He can go to his pro day. Running the 4.4s, I think he might be viewed a little different. Do some of the testing. If he tested well on the agility drills, then you might like him. Now, I saw someone in the chat say Jermaine Waller. Waller measured in at 6 foot, 180 pounds, and ran a 4.68. I'm out.
And that track was fast. Have you heard that? I heard Lance Zierlein talking about how he asked people what was going on, and everyone's like, "Why is everybody so fast?" Because basically, the wide receivers broke records, then the offensive linemen broke records, and then the next day when Jordan Davis ran 4.78 or whatever, Lance Zierlein's like, I'm going to call people because this can't be right. And he was calling people, and their stopwatches were the same. But then he talked to the Colts, and the Colts said they put brand new turf in at Lucas Oil in 2020. Last year, there was no combine there. So this is the first time, and that surface was scorching fast. So I think a lot of these prospects that decided not to run are going to regret that decision, because I think the surface is about as fast as you can get there at Lucas Oil. And I think that's why we saw so many fast times. And
what about the guys
that some teams might even add 0.05 to these times just to kind of normalize it, because that's how fast it was, like almost unbelievably fast.
Well, what about the guys who didn't run fast on it? So like the Kobe Bryants who ran 4.54, or like the Treylon Burks, or
Yeah, or Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, you're talking about a 4.6 guy now, maybe.
That's not top 5 potential right there. Not not if you're running in the 4.6s as a safety. Safety get drafted that high, you got to be a freak.
Kaiir Elam, is he gone by 61? I know you're a big fan of his. Is he a first round guy? Where's he going to go?
I like his ability a lot. I mean, potentially second round. I have to dive into more of his film, but so far I've watched a couple of games, including Alabama, and I thought he looked really good against Bama.
I mean, 6'1.5", 191, just under 31-inch arms. Maybe you'd like longer arms and a little bit more weight, but he ran a 4.39, good tape. Kaiir Elam's going to go high, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's probably cornerback 3 maybe in this class.
That's actually right where I have him. Well, let me look at my paper right here. Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., Kaiir Elam.
Yeah. I can totally see that. And how about this, though? Okay.
Uh-oh. Did I lose you? Is it me? Yo. Am I the one that froze up? Okay, no, they're saying is Peacock. All right, anyways, I'm going to carry this for my guy Peacock until he comes back somehow. Somehow with this restream, it's always me. But this time, it's him. All right, so I get to tease him a little bit about that. I'm not sure where he was going just now with it, but who are y'all favorite prospects? Let's do that until Peacock gets back. All right, so Justin Ross out of Clemson, another guy who didn't run. You know who I was surprised to see run well? George Pickens out of Georgia, guy who ran 4.47. That was his official time, which is really good. Matter of fact, his unofficial times were pretty good too. I thought he might got faster. Oh, we got Peacock back. All right, he's back.
I'm here. Woo! I thought we were having to call it quits there. Okay, I'm back. Lewis Cine. Let's go get him, Crocky.
Man, big time ability. I love me some. Listen, when it comes to the draft, I'm looking for just high upside, and obviously you want to get some guys with good, good production, tape, all that good stuff. But man, give me some guys that obviously you want the production and the ability. I think a guy like Lewis Cine, he has that. He ran 4.37 or whatever, and he definitely has the ability to play that fast on film.
Yeah, go get some difference-making players, right? Go put yourself over the top with some of these players. Don't and John Lynch is really active, so I think the 49ers have an opportunity to definitely be picking before 61 in this draft. George Pickens, another one I like. If he's there for the Niners at 61 in the draft, and he could be, man, that could be a really good area in round 2, I think, specifically for safety and wide receiver. And I don't know if the Niners would be going with either one of those positions and have that as their highest need, but I could really see in that. I could see those positions having the best player available when the Niners are on the clock at 61. I would not hate George Pickens.
I have someone just asked about, will Watson be there at 61? I have Christian Watson out of North Dakota State as my wide receiver 4 right now. So I have Jameson Williams as wide receiver 1, who he tore his ACL. So there's projection there, but I think he just played like out of the top guys. He played the fastest. He was the most explosive. Run after catch was crazy. Vertical speed was crazy. I have Jameson Williams as my wide receiver 1, especially if he's healthy. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and then Christian Watson.
Christian Watson is a really tough one. I thought he was going to be there in round 3, even after a good Senior Bowl, round 2-3 area. Wouldn't have been shocked in round 2, but I thought he might have been there in round 3, even maybe at 93 for the 49ers. But after what he did and put everything together, production in college, shows up at the Senior Bowl, best wide receiver there, shows up at the combine and does really, really special things. Like he had a ridiculous combine workout. Really good character. Every team is going to love him, but it's a deep wide receiver class. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he sneaks into the end of round 1, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's still there for the Niners at 61 either. But I don't
Got to
think that
take him.
I don't think that round 3 area is in the conversation anymore. But 61 could be. Look, DK Metcalf was on the board at 61, so
Right.
Christian Watson could be. And he's a small school guy, and sometimes that just adds it just knocks you down an extra round versus what you would have been in as a prospect if you were a Power 5 guy. It's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah. And I think everything I've seen, and I see someone, Mike Shields, in the chat talk about it. Watson is hell athletic. He graded similar to Calvin Johnson on athletic scale. And every athletic chart that I've seen so far, he's off the charts. Like Christian Watson he's up there. Christian Watson higher than Terrace Marshall. Yeah. He's more dynamic than Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall, there were things where it's like, man, I was high on Marshall. I had him at like wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. But I would have Watson ahead of him. I mean, he's 6'4". Like, he's a legit 6'4", 210 pounds. And to run the way he does, vertical jump the way he does, broad jump. I mean, his routes are good. Like, he has some suddenness. You can move him around. They put him on kick return, ran a touchdown back, goes to the Senior Bowl, best receiver there, goes to the combine, blows it away. I mean, it's like, what more do you want him to do?
And he blocks.
I mean, he dominated at North Dakota State. And of course, you want to see that, especially at that level, but like, he dominated.
All right, we got to get out of here. I saw some folks asking about the Locked On gear. Apologize for the Raiders colors, by the way, on this one, but that's just the shirt that Locked On sent us. It was black and silver. I don't know if you see the back. 10 million downloads in a month.
Whoa.
That's why they sent us all these shirts. But and another listener was asking about Locked On 49ers specific shirts. Not available yet. I've been talking to David, been talking to the folks at the network. We got to get a Locked On store so folks can buy shirts of the podcast. But as of now, only the hosts occasionally on special occasions get shirts and some gear and some hats and backpacks and other things sent out to them. But at some point maybe we'll have a giveaway with some of this gear if they send me enough of it. But right now there is no Locked On gear available. But appreciate everybody for jumping in on the podcast, on the live stream today. It was a lot of fun. Croc and I will finish up the week tomorrow. And maybe we'll be talking about a Jimmy G trade. We're starting to feel like it could come very, very soon. We're going to be here throughout the offseason, though, talking free agency, talking trades, and especially talking draft. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out Crocky on Locked On NFL. Check me out on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show as well. Appreciate all of you, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.